Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are at Harwood Audi, and the reason we are here is to pick up Eventuri's brand new Audi RS3 8Y. Now, after the sad demise of our Audi RS3 8V, a lot of people have been asking us, are we going to do another RS3 project? We didn't want to do it on the old platform, so we now have the new car, and the main purpose of it is to design the new Eventuri Intake on this platform. It was extremely successful on the old platform, and we want to repeat that again for this new model. Now, I haven't seen this car before, so let's get the covers off and take a look. So here it is, our brand new Audi RS3 in turbo blue. So this is the launch edition. So it has a few optional extras. They are TPMS, adaptive dampers, the Audi RS Sports exhaust. So what do I think of the design? It's very different to the old one. The old one's just sitting out there, and this one is now making that look slightly dated. It's quite busy on the front end, but that's very aggressive. And I think the thing that sticks out for me is this gloss black part around the huge grille. You know, BMW doing huge grilles now, but the Audi been doing them for ages, but it seemed to work on this. Really cool headlight design, and we'll show you later on, but when you switch the car on, oh, Matt can push it, there you go, it does a little dance. No, he's pushed the wrong button. There we go. And the matrix lights up there, and it does a similar thing at the back. So overall, the front end looks very, very aggressive. It's got some little air inlets going down here, and they've also matched this bottom splitter here to the wing mirrors. It has chrome around the windows, which I'm not a massive fan of, but the wheels are the similar color at the moment, so it kind of goes. We'll see what we do about that later on. It's very aggressive front arch. It's so wide that they actually made a fake vent here, but it does add a lot of width to the car. Same on the rear, that arch does actually look very, very wide. So coming round to the back of the car, you can see a lot of the DNA from the old car onto this. It looks like the old car, but just very, very refreshed. Does that really cool light dance on the rear lights, and they've got a very modern twist to them with the LEDs coming down here and the shape of the light on this part on the boot. Overall, I think I really like the car. It does very much look like the old one, but it looks like it's on steroids. It's just wider, it's more aggressive without being too outlandish. So I think this is a very good evolution of the previous design. Stepping inside the car, the interior is very, very different to the old one. The old one was starting to look quite dated. This is very modern, has lots of angles and detail going on around the dash. This screen is a lot bigger than on the previous one. Even the door cards, again, lots of different angles and cuts and shape to it. It feels very, very modern in here without being too modern. It's still got some analog controls from the heaters, which I like. Obviously, these are my initial impressions. It's going to take a bit of time to spend with the car to actually see what it feels like on a day-to-day basis, but it does feel premium in here. Not as premium as, for example, the A45S, which has an absolutely amazing interior, but it's still a very, very nice place to be. Audi steering wheels, probably one of my favorite, and I think they've actually done a better job on these paddles. On the old model, they looked a bit cheap, but they've got a bit more metal going on in here. So overall, the interior does actually look pretty good. It's going to take a bit more time for me to formulate my proper views when I actually start using the car, but first impressions are actually very decent. That's a very quick tour of the car. As I said, once I've spent a bit more time with this, I'll go over everything in more detail. But let's take a look at the most important thing for Eventuri and the reason why we bought the car, and that is the engine. My initial impressions are that it looks very similar to the 8V. Looks like there's slightly more room at the back. The airbox does look the same, but let's get this car back to Bilal because he's the one who will be able to tell us whether our existing one fits, because that's probably what he's going to be hoping, but I reckon that we will need to redesign quite a lot of the parts. So I'm back in the Eventuri development area. The Rs3 is here. If you're wondering how the car drives, I don't actually know because I sat on the motorway on the M25 and then the M1. So I will do proper driving impressions, but more importantly, you need to hand the keys to Bill.
Thank you.
And I've also got you this because you know what happened to the last one.
Safety first.
Yep, so now you can get to work and make a beautiful intake for this car.
Thank you. So this is the first time I'm seeing this in the flesh. I've seen press images, but yeah, first time in front of me. It looks quite different from the previous one, but I am very excited to look at what's under that bonnet and have a look at the stock intake and then see what we can do with the intake system. Okay, let's have a look and see what's under the bonnet. So obviously it's the same engine as the previous one. Just need to see if there's any differences in the packaging. Initial impressions, looks like there's much more space at the back of the engine compared to the previous model, which probably means there's less space at the front. And then obviously we have an ECU here as well, which looks like it's a bit more close to the airbox. So there looks like a few differences already. There's only one way to find out. I'm going to remove the stock intake system and try and fit the Stage 3 Rs3 intake. Stock intake is out, and with the intake removed, definitely there is a lot more space at the back of the engine, between the engine and the firewall, which means obviously there's less at the front. So I'm going to grab the current Rs3 intake, offer it into this space and see what the differences are. Now, this is a very quick test fit to see what the differences actually are before we go into a full development video, which will be the next video. So let's go grab the intake and see what happens. I'm going to start with the rear tube. So this is the silicone which goes onto the previous 8V system, which should go straight on. And it does. Okay. And then the tube itself. Yep. I haven't removed everything because this is just a quick test fit of the main components. So I've still left the breather in place and some of the brackets. Right, there's a tube in place, which is roughly about there. Okay, I'm going to try the duct first before I put the housing in, just because that looks like where the biggest change has been. So yes, definitely fouling on the throttle body. I haven't put it in place yet. It's getting stuck somewhere. There you go. Okay, so it actually looks like it's in place. It is very close to that throttle body, a lot closer than it was on the previous version. Pretty much 4 or 5 millimeters clearance, which is too little, because when the engine accelerates, it's going to rock backwards and probably touch the duct. So I've got the duct in. I mean, it's not perfect. It's fouling. It will foul on the throttle body under acceleration. So it needs some modification. However, I've got it in place. I'm just going to see now how the filter housing sits in relation to the duct. So let's get this in place. All right. I mean, this is not a complete installation, as I mentioned earlier. It's literally just the major components to make sure, or to see what needs changing. So the filter is in place. I haven't secured it down, and the good thing is the filter does clear the ECU, which is great, and it clears underneath as well, which is what I expected. Obviously this tube is fine, plenty of clearance behind the tube. It's just that front duct which needs modification, and also the mounting positions of the duct need modification as well. Apart from that, it's not too bad. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. It's less work than I anticipated. So I'm going to remove all this now, get the scanner out and scan the duct position, the mounting points, the rear turbo tube for reference. I will then merge that scan to the previous 8V scan, and that will give us a very good idea of the position of that throttle body, the duct positions and the turbo tube between the 8Y and the 8V, and then we can start with our development.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, please remember to smash that like button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. If you want to join the conversation, please drop a comment below and we'll try our best to respond to you. If you want to watch more of this project, you can do so over here. If you want to watch what YouTube thinks you might like from our other content, you can do so over here.